Hello everybody, RoyalRapids here, and welcome to Pokemon Emerald Rogue. The first time on this channel, I'll be officially taking on a ROM hack challenge. Now before we get into this, I want to thank everyone so much for 600 subscribers. As of the recording of this video, I just hit 600, and I want to thank everyone that already subscribed for subscribing. And I want to ask those of you who are not subscribed, which by analytics is about 97% of you, to please take the time to hit that subscribe button. I promise you, the content will get better and better and better as time goes on, and I appreciate every piece of feedback and views that you give me. Without further ado, though, it's time to hop into the ROM hack as we talk to Scott, who I'm pretty sure leads the Battle Frontier in regular Emerald. I don't know, I never played the post game. And without further ado, it is time to pick our starter. We have three options, being Tyrogue, Beldum, and Psyduck. And while I thought about Beldum for a while, the lack of PC system made it to be useless for the first like 4 or 5 gyms. And a water type like Psyduck is always useful, especially in the first 3 generations. On the opening routes of the game, we pick up a Mr. Mime, an Absol, a Mawile, and also a Skarmory, giving our squad of 5 some pretty solid potential. Some fully evolved Pokemon as well as 2 steel types is always key. And also in this game, with limited trainer battles, you only have limited money, so while you're allowed to use items in battle, it's strategic whether or not you want to, because the amount of limited money you have depends on how many trainers you fight and how many deaths you're willing to risk. First things first though, here is Watson, the electric type gym leader. After switch to Mawile, we plug away with a few more Fairy Winds, getting the KO. Unfortunately, Voltorb manages to paralyze our Mawile, but still it locks itself into Rollout, which we resist due to our Steel typing, and a few more bites get the KO on the Sentient Pokeball. A switch to Mr. Mime on the Emerald Goat, Minin, if you know, you know, allows us to get an easy KO as we plug away with a few more Confusions, earning us not only our first gym badge, but also the HM4 Cut, which will allow us to access more parts of upcoming routes. After picking up an Electric, which is a pretty solid encounter for this point of the game, we head on to do this little mini game here, which you pick left or right, and you can either get stat buffs, you know, money buffs, or debuffs, like all my Pokemon getting frozen here. Not ideal, but we do have a rest stop coming up next, which is why I decided to do this, and we also unfortunately lose 1,000 Pokédollars. Still not the end of the world as we heal up, and the move tutor also is able to teach my Absol Play Rough, giving it some much needed coverage, leading into the second gym battle, which is a single battle versus Liza from the Tate and Liza duo, obviously. First up is Slowpoke, as I lead with Mr. Mime and go for a light screen before encoring it into Confusion. Now Confusion is doing literally nothing, there's just an Absol who's immune to Confusion, but unfortunately for us, she has a Fairy type in Mr. Mime. Knowing I'm dead to a Dazzling Gleam, I switch to Skarmory, and I make a very odd play, going for Sand Attack twice instead of going for the super effective Metal Claw. Dazzling Gleam is doing big damage, leading me to believe Mr. Mime is Specs. While only hanging on with 12 HP, I switch to Mawile. After being brought down to 14 HP, despite quad resisting the attack, Dazzling Gleam is doing huge damage. Mercifully though, Mr. Mime does miss, meaning Mawile's life is spared, and 2 more Feint Attacks downs the creepy Mime, leading into Kadabra. Now fortunately for us, the rest of our team poses absolutely no threat, as she switches to Slowpoke, allowing us to get off a free Swords Dance, and one single bite downs whatever Slowpoke's supposed to be, leading into Kadabra. She switches into Spoink, knowing she can't hurt us, but Spoink goes down in one hit, and after a Hail Mary Miracle Eye, so does Kadabra, earning us a second gym badge in really tough fashion, although if I just went for Metal Claw, I think it would have been much easier. On the next route, our Electric evolves into Manectric, and unfortunately we lose our Absol to a random trainer's Pinscher. Now, I guess the silver lining is we get the KO with Skarmory on the next turn, and also our trusty starter Psyduck evolves into Golduck. But due to this loss, I end up going into the Brawly fight with only 5 Pokemon. Now, Brawly himself only has 4, so it's not the end of the world here, as after setting up a Reflect, Mr. Mime one-shots Primeape with a single Psybeam. Hitmonchan does pretty big damage with 2 Bullet Punches, but 2 Psybeams get the job done, even though it's pretty high special defense, leading into Hitmontop. Now, after a Fake Out and a Bullet Punch, Mr. Mime is brought super low, but after a Reflect, we can safely switch to Mawile and plug away at both Hitmontop and Machoke with Fairy Winds. So not doing a ton of damage here, so as Machoke rests, I go into Manectric, and a Discharge is huge damage, bringing it into the deep yellow, allowing one more to get the KO. Last up is Hitmontop, who's already taken damage, and after a Fake Out, Static procs, and one more Discharge earns us a super straightforward 3rd gym badge, earning us not only the badge, but also the HM Rock Smash. On the next route, we hit up a strong Pokemon den, which has a chance to be a legendary, but unfortunately for us, it's a very mediocre Muck. I still catch it and add it to the squad, because these Pokemon always have good IVs, optimal natures, and pretty solid movesets. I do see this Muck has Curse, Rest, and Poison Jab, and Sleep Talk for that matter. Without further ado though, here's the 4th gym fight against Juan, and I'm just warning you now, watching back this footage gave me multiple heart attacks. We lead up with Mr. Mime and go for a light screen, allowing a safe switch to Manectric, mercifully avoiding the burn and taking out the Mantine with a single quad effective Discharge. In comes Quagsire, and for some reason I switched to Muck, thinking that Scald is coming out due to our good special defense. After an Earthquake comes in though, I do bring in Skarmory, allowing us to tank a Scald in the process, but unfortunately get burned, which cripples us offensively. After switching back and forth a bunch of times and heal stalling for what felt like for whatever, I bring in Golduck, who after a couple attacks connect and a Toxic, we down the Quagsire with 3 Water Pulses. In comes Omastar, so I stay in, and after a little back and forth, I do elect to go for the neutral Water Pulse, which does quite a bit of damage. And after we get lucky with a hit and confusion, one more Water Pulse takes down the fossil Pokemon, leading into Kingdra. Now this thing is stupidly scary with access to Substitute and Focus Energy on its moveset, and if you're thinking about Kingdra, you know that it has the Sniper ability, meaning that crits do double damage. And after a Focus Energy comes in, a single crit Hydro Pump wipes Mawile off the map. There's really nothing I can do here, so I go for a Light Screen with Mr. Mime, but obviously a crit ignores that and sends our second death of the run to the Shadow Realm. In comes Manectric, and mercifully Kingdra misses a Hydro Pump, meaning that we avoid the wipe here. A Discharge kicks out Kingdra, but the fight's not over yet as Slowbro comes in. But actually, I'm lying. The fight is over. A single Discharge takes down the Hippo, earning us the victory over Juan, somehow not wiping. We have 4 gym badges, and clearly this run is blessed, because we avoided a near wipe with that Hydro Pump miss. On the next route, we get a phenomenal encounter in the Bug Fighting type Heracross, and also on that same route, I believe we get another H Pokemon, that being the Ghost and Poison type Haunter. Back to a full team of 6, things are looking pretty good, but unfortunately for us, we lose our trusty Manectric to a random trainer's Cacturn. That's Emerald Rogue for ya. Bad luck keeps piling up, and it would have been nice to have our Electric type for the Flying type gym, with one of our Pokemon being quad weak to Flying. But fortunately for us, this fight is not nearly as bad as the ones that preceded it. A single Steel Wing takes out the Togetic, leading into Mantine. Not the scariest flying type in the world, we take the opportunity to set up a Curse. Mantine's not doing much damage thanks to our really high special defense, and a few Poison Jabs do eventually get the job done. Mantine does keep stalling with Substitute, but we're doing more damage than it can heal off as it starts going for Roost. As you can see though, Poison Jab almost gets the one shot, and after a second Roost, a single Poison Jab gets the job done, leading into Murkrow. Now, Murkrow here has Foul Play, which is pretty big damage. We hang on with 9 HP, heal with a Citrus Berry, and take out the bird with a single Poison Jab, leading into Butterfree, and somehow a Butterfree managed to take out our Muck. This thing must have been Specs, because otherwise there is no way in hell that would have happened. Fortunately though, our starter Golduck comes in, cleans out Butterfree with an Ice Beam, and Aerodactyl with a Hydro Pump, earning us a pretty straightforward 5th gym badge over Gym Leader Winona. After that, we get an absolutely busted encounter in the Water Ground type Swampert, and admittedly a slightly less busted encounter in the Fire Ground type Camerupt. Still, we get some much needed type coverage and get back to a squad of 6, before taking on the 6th gym leader in this challenge, that being the Rock user Winona. We leave with Skarmory and end up getting up 3 layers of spikes, while Corsola also gets up a Stealth Rock in the process, but unfortunately for us, we end up getting burned from a Scald, crippling us offensively. After stalling for what felt like for whatever, I end up switching into Heracross and whipping up the Corsola off the map with a single super effective Brick Break. After Rocky Helmet and Sandstorm Chip, we're down into the deep yellow, but a single close combat easily one-shots the Sudowoodo, bringing on Roxanne's 3rd Pokemon, that being Rhydon. Now, after Spike's damage, close combat might have got the KO, but I decided to play it safe and go into Golduck. Now, Golduck here, although we don't have a super effective Water-type move on our moveset, we end up having Ice Beam, and a single 2x effective Ice Beam wipes out Rhydon. But unfortunately for us, Ice Beam does not get the KO on Kabutops, even with a crit, meaning that Golduck goes down to a Stone Edge. Fortunately for us, though, Heracross takes out Kabutops with a Brick Break, and also Tyranitar with a single close combat. Despite the death, though, we do get a pretty easy 6th gym badge, allowing us to move on with the challenge. And I had another Water type in Swampert, so I don't feel too bad about losing Golduck in the process. On the next route, we pick up ourselves a Tauros, which is a pretty solid encounter, and also a legendary Pokemon Moltres. Far from the best legendary, but far better than Camerupt, as we replace our resident Fire type with a new legendary Fire type before taking on the Fire type Gym Leader. A lot of firepower going on here, as Blaziken protects for a speed boost, but a resisted hidden power just tickles Swampert, as a single Earthquake finishes off the Fire Chicken in one hit. Focus Blast is pretty big damage into Swampert, but after Citrus Berry recovery, we take it out with a single quad effective Rock Slide, leading into Camerupt, who being as weak as it is, goes down to a single Earthquake. That's 3 KOs for Swampert, and after a Flare Blitz does huge damage, we hang on and Swampert picks up KO 4 of the match. Hanging on by a thread, we like to switch out into Tauros, and after Intimidate drop, high horsepower is very little damage, meaning after Rapidash gets greedy, going for a Swords Dance, 2 strengths get the job done. Unfortunately though, Flame Body procs, making Tauros useless for the rest of the match, bringing in Moltres for its debut battle, as the legendary bird goes for a couple air slashes into Magmar, getting the 2-hit KO, and earning the victory over whatever Magmar is supposed to be. That's Gym Badge number 7, and this run is nearing its end. Can we complete it? Stay tuned to find out. On the next route, I elected to take on one of those strong trainer battles, this one being up against Aqua Admin Archie. First up is Quillfish, and even after an Intimidate drop, Swampert is able to take out the useless Johto Pokemon in one single Earthquake. After denying Sky Attack on Moltres, in comes Crawdon. I needed a safe switch here, since we didn't have a link cable, I elected to go with Haunter. Now, you'll see why I sacked the Pokemon in a minute, as a single close combat takes out the Crawdaunt and also the incoming Murkrow. Heracross is an absolute beast, and these close combats, also boosted by its adamant nature, are absolutely killing the competition. In comes Seeking, and a rain-boosted Waterfall doesn't do much thanks to the Intimidate drop, allowing us to take it out with a few strengths. Now, if Waterfall would have crit, we would have been in trouble, but hey, it didn't. Only a 6.25% chance, as in comes Walrein. Now, thanks to Skarmory coming in and going for a Sand attack, Walrein misses a Surf, allowing us to outspeed and take out the Walrus with 2 more Earthquakes, leading into his final Pokemon, Azumarill. Now, Azumarill here, even though it's huge power, after you go for an Earthquake, it just ends up failing a Belly Drum, allowing us to take it out with 1 more, earning us the victory over Archie. Now, in this team, when you defeat a strong trainer, you get 3 TMs and also a choice of one of their Pokemon. We pick up a huge power Azumarill. Getting a Fairy type with a busted ability, ain't no problem with having that on my team. Now it's time for the 8th and final gym leader, the normal type user Norman. A single close combat one-shots the Persian, leading into Girafarig. Now, unfortunately, our sweep has to be interrupted here as Azumarill comes in and tanks 2 Choice Band Psychic Fangs to one-shot the horse with a single Dark-type knockoff. In comes Dunsparce, but no Paraflinch today, as a single close combat wipes it off the map. In comes Furret, it does not outspeed, and 1 more close combat also wipes it off the map, leaving Lickitung, who also goes on to a single close combat, and also a fellow pink Pokemon in Miltank, who goes on to a single close combat. Gotta love Heracross, as our super speedy bug one-shots 4 of 5 Norman Pokemon, earning us our 8th and final gym badge here in Emerald Road. Obviously, the game is far from over, as we have plenty more battles to go. The first off is the Dragon-type Elite Four member Drake. He leads up for the pseudo-legendary Dragon Salamence, where we go into Skarmory and plug away with a few more Steel Wings. Now, fortunately for us, Outrage manages to confuse the Salamence, meaning that it hits us up in Confusion twice. While Stealing would normally be a 3-hit, the Confusion hits make it a 2-hit, leaving Skarmory with a good amount of HP remaining, leading into Dragonite, a fellow pseudo-legendary dragon. After a Sand attack connected to Dragonite, Fire Punch unfortunately hits, leaving us low, meaning Moltres is forced to come in. Now, Flamethrower from us is doing very little damage into the pseudo-legendary dragon, meaning we're forced to switch to Air Slash. But since it seems to be Choice Band locked into Fire Punch, we're able to plug away with a few more Flamethrowers and Air Slashes into the dragon, earning us a win over it. Next up is Drake's 3rd member, that being Flygon, not a pseudo-legendary. For once, it's forced to switch into Swampert, as it mercifully misses a Stone Edge. After Flygon gets greedy and goes for Dragon Dance, a single quad-effective Ice Beam wipes it out, leading into Latios. Now, Latios here goes for a resisted hidden power, which seems to be its best option into us, meaning that we're able to tank 2 of those pretty easily and finish off a legendary Pokemon with 2 Ice Beams. In comes Latias. It seems to know Draco Meteor, which is huge damage into Swampert. We do about half with Ice Beam, but a switch to Azumarill means we can tank a Draco Meteor and finish off another legendary Pokemon with a Play Rough. Last but not least is Kingdra, but it has no real options to hit us. It just plugs away with Ice Beam as we miss a Play Rough. But as soon as we hit a Play Rough, it's enough for the one-shot on Kingdra, earning us the victory over the Dragon-type Elite Four member being Drake. 3 more Elite Four members to go, though, as there is a ton of game left to be played here in Pokemon Emerald Rogue. We get stupidly lucky finding 3 leftovers on the ground, which will be an invaluable item to our bulkier team members like Skarmory and Azumarill. Adding to the luck, we run into a legendary Pokemon Latias and add it to the team, replacing Tauros. Now with Latias and Moltres, we have 2 legendaries on our side to take on the Ice-type Elite Four Glacia. Unfortunately, Latias being a Dragon-type won't be super useful here, but Azumarill, as always, will be super useful, one-shotting Piloswine with a super effective Waterfall. After Leftovers recovery offsets the Hail Chip, in comes Walrein, and after we hit into a Protect, we do stay in, staying at full HP, doing big damage with the knockoff. The knockoff removes Walrein's leftovers, allowing us to keep our own leftovers and plug away with Play Roughs, knockoffs, and whatever else we have on our moveset. Take out the bulky Walrein, leading into Glacia's next Pokemon being Lapras, another bulky Pokemon. And Azumarill doesn't have a ton it can do here, but Play Rough, thanks to our huge power ability, does big damage, but unfortunately for us, Freeze Dry is super effective and freezes us, allowing us to get into Skarmory. Due to what I believe being a Choice Specs item attached to it, Lapras is still doing huge damage into Skarmory with Freeze Dry, and we are fortunately able to get the KO with only 46 HP remaining with a couple Steel Wings. After Sneasel comes in, we switch to Moltres on a knockoff, and polish off the Weasel with a super effective Flamethrower. Moltres is low, however, only 30 HP after Hail Chip, meaning we have to go into Swampert versus Cloyster. Cloyster has a Skill Link ability, so its Rock Blast and Icicle Spears are guaranteed to hit 5 times, but due to our pretty good bulk on Swampert, we are pretty safe to take either one of those. We get brought down to a little over half HP, meaning an Earthquake does about a third here to Cloyster, who has really good physical defense. And my only special move here on Swampert is Resisted Ice Beam. Earthquake does bring down Cloyster to about a third, but we aren't super safe to stay in. We're forced to go to Heracross, and a 5-hit Icicle Spear is a little over half damage. Due to the Guts boost, though, a Brick Break is way more than enough to take out the Bivalve, leading into Glacia's final Pokemon Articuno, but with the Guts boost, and thanks to help of a critical hit, a single close combat polishes off the legendary bird, earning us the victory over the Ice-type Elite Four member. Next up is Elite Four member number 3 in this, that being the Ghost type user Phoebe, as she leads off with a Shedinja. After hitting a weak Shadow Sneak, obviously its 1 HP is eviscerated by a super effective knockoff leading into Gengar. Now Gengar does nothing into Skarmory, going for a weak Shadow Ball, actually not so weak Shadow Ball, what am I saying? Before a Night Slash actually fails to get the KO. This means that we're forced to switch into a Azumarill, who tanks a Shadow Ball pretty well before finishing off the Gengar with a priority Aqua Jet. Leftovers recovery brings it into the green, meaning we can switch to Skarmory on a knockoff, then into Moltres, who after losing its Charcoal unfortunately still has enough power to take out the Bug type with a single Flamethrower. In comes Dusclops here, and I like to just go for Roost to try to heal to full. However, Dusclops goes for Pain Split and Trick Room, just trying to be annoying with weird status moves. Fortunately for us though, its best attacking move is Nightshade, meaning that I can just spam Roost to offset the Nightshades and Pain Splits before Trick Room wears off, allowing us to eviscerate it with a single Flamethrower. Next up is Sableye, who has some of the worst stats in the game, as a Flamethrower barely misses out on the KO before eventually getting it after an Encore, and I'm sure Phoebe felt super smart encoring us into a Flamethrower before switching in the Quad Weak Scizor. Last but not least is what usually is the first Elite Four member, but this is the last, that being the Dark type user Sydney. He did the weak Sableye, and a single critical Mega Horn, which I don't think we needed, eviscerated the Ghost Dark type off the face of the planet. After barely taking a Fire Blast somehow, we one-shot not only Houndoom, but also Crawdaunt with a Guts boosted close combat. In comes Sharpedo. Although we would get the KO, we'd be dead to Rough Skin and Burn damage. We'd have to go into Skarmory. And Sharpedo here manages to hit some Life Orb boosted Waterfalls into our face, when we're forced to switch into a Azumarill. Now Azumarill gets flinched not once, but twice from Waterfall, as Speed Boost keeps making Sharpedo faster and faster. Eventually we do connect with a Player Up, which does get the KO, and also reveals that Sharpedo didn't even have Rough Skin, as you know it has Speed Boost. Point is though, whatever, a single Player Up takes out Shiftry, leading into Sneasel. I don't know why this game loves Sneasel so much, but Moltres comes in, takes a knockoff, and eviscerates it with a single super effective Flamethrower, as we have defeated the 4th and final Elite Four member Sydney. But if you ever know anything about Emerald Rogue, this is far from over. Fortunately, we do catch a super good team member, that being the pseudo-legendary dragon, Salamence, as I do elect to replace our other resident legendary Moltres, as I feel like it has served its purpose at this point and is very much outclassed by Salamence, who can also learn fire moves. First up is Mantine, as we lead with our resident legendary Latias, but unfortunately, even after you get up a Calm Mind, Mantine hits us with a Toxic, putting Latias on a timer. And due to its ridiculous base 140 special defense, it takes 2 Psychics to take out the Water Flying type. At about half HP, obviously a single Psychic one-shots Tentacruel and brings in Wallace's 3rd Pokemon, that being Kingdra. I believe we would have one-shot, but since Kingdra outsped, a single Draco Meteor takes out our legendary, giving us our first Death of the Champion battle. We bring in Salamence, and we also don't outspeed with Salamence, meaning I think this Kingdra might be Choice Scarfed, but we hang on with a measly 81 HP, taking it out with a single super effective Dragon Claw, leading into the Water Ground type Swampert. We bring in a Azumarill, who can tank anything Swampert has, as Scald mercifully avoids the burn. After a knockoff does pretty big damage, we take an Earthquake and finish off the Gen 3 starter with a nice Waterfall. In comes Crawdaunt, who's not super fast, meaning we can outspeed with a Player Off and pick up the one-shot against the Dark type, leading to Wallace's final Pokemon, the legendary Kyogre. I go for a knockoff, which gets rid of Kyogre's Life Orb, and fortunately for us, Wallace gets greedy and goes for a second Calm Mind, meaning a single Player Off connects, and we have defeated the champion of Hoenn, at least an Emerald version, but if you know anything about Emerald Rogue, it's not over yet. And I don't know if this is intentional yet, or we got super lucky, but we get a lab encounter which allows us to revive one of our Pokemon, and we managed to get our legendary Pokemon Latias back on the team. But due to a consequence, the route that we went on, we are forced to take on one of the legendary trainers, that being the Frontier Brain Noland. Now good for us though, he does lead with an Altaria, which goes on to a quad effective Ice Beam, leading to his second Pokemon, Rayquaza. Now Rayquaza outspeeds, but unfortunately for it gets greedy and goes for a Swords Dance, meaning a single quad effective Ice Beam takes out the Emerald Box legendary. In comes Walrein as they go for an Earthquake, which is a little over half due to a critical hit. And after you take a Blizzard and get some leftovers recovery, a single Waterfall downs the Walrus. Nolan still has 2 Pokemon left, one of those being Latias, our own legendary Pokemon, and an Ice Beam only does about half due to its pretty good special defense. We hang out with 90 HP, but due to the Hail Chip, we are forced to switch, as we like to go into Skarmory, who can tank anything Latias has for it. We'll also leftovers chip to heal off the hail damage. A single Steel Wing takes out the Lati twin, leading into Nolan's second to last Pokemon, that being Sneasel, Emerald Rogue's favorite Pokemon. But due to it sucking, a single super effective Steel Wing wipes it off the map, leading to his final Pokemon, that being Dragonite. Now Dragonite can't really do a ton to us, meaning I can plug away with it with a few Steel Wings, hoping for defense boosts in the time being. Unfortunately, we don't get any, proccing a switch into a Azumarill. Now Azumarill, obviously with the super effective Player Off, even after a Roost, brings it into the red. And after Hail Chip, a priority Aqua Jet is enough to take out the pseudo legendary, earning us the victory over the legendary trainer Deathless, meaning we will have a full team leading into the final battle of the run, that being the champion of Ruby and Sapphire and the super boss of Emerald, Steven Stone. It all comes down to this. This is the first run I've ever had that has even come remotely this far, and here we are versus the champion of not only Ruby and Sapphire, but also of Emerald Rogue, that being the Steel user, Steven Stone. He has an auto Sandstorm, which gives his Steel and Rock type special defense boosts. Unfortunately for us, we were not able to pick up the one-shot due to a Gen 5 Sturdy existing in this game, meaning that we are forced to take a little bit of Sandstorm chip before taking out the Steelix with a Dragon Claw. And comes Metagross, and for some reason it has Ice Punch, which yeah, quite effective, wipes Salamence off the map. It seems to be choice band locked though, so unfortunately for us, we're able to hit a critical close combat into its face before switching into a Azumarill. He switches into Mewtwo. Now, we do have the super effective knockoff here, which is boosted by the fact Mewtwo is holding an item, meaning it's going to do pretty big damage, and Mewtwo gets greedy, going for a nasty plot, meaning the age-old combo of knockoff and Aqua Jet is enough to take on the Gen 1 Legendary. Down goes Mewtwo, and in comes its replacement, being Magneton. We're at full HP, but due to it being an electric type, I switch into my Resident Ground type, that being Swampert, as Thunderbolt does nothing, proccing Steven to switch into Jirachi. Jirachi, though, even though it has base 100 defense, it goes down to a single super effective Earthquake, bringing in Metagross. Metagross outspeeds and goes for a soft Meteor Mash, but one single Waterfall is enough to take out the Gen 3 Pseudo, bringing in Magneton. Magneton goes down in one hit, obviously after a weak Flash Cannon connects, leaving just one final Pokemon. That final Pokemon is Registeel, and even though it has monster defenses, we get a critical Earthquake, taking out the Legendary, the Champion, and finally, for the first time in my life, defeating Pokemon Emerald Rogue. I am so glad that you guys got this far in the video, and I thank you so much for watching. This is the first ROM hack I've taken on the channel, and after countless failed attempts in this game, I finally spent a day to sit down, look at videos of the game and figure out a way to finally beat this ROM hack. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and please let me know below what you'd like to see coming up next on the channel. Thank you so much for all the support, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.